Hey dudes!
Morning.
Welcome back to a new video.
In this video, we will share our cons of living in Latvia.
So in previous video we did all the positive things, and in this video we'll talk about the things that we don't necessarily like about Latvia.
And also, while we were preparing this video, we realized that we can't really come up with that many cons. Maybe we're just like happy to be back, but we only came up with some, so we'll share those.
So I guess that's a good sign. Alright, I'll start off with the very first one, and that's something we only noticed because we now have a car, and that is how bad roads are here. I've heard people complain about it all the time. There's jokes everywhere about it, but the thing is, in cities, especially in cities, the roads are quite bad.
The city streets are not that well maintained. It doesn't take long to repair them. We saw some guys repairing the road in a couple of minutes, but it doesn't happen that often. The streets are full with potholes, and then when you drive in Riga from one place to another, you just have to kind of drive this so you avoid your tires to be popped on one of these potholes, which is crazy.
It's interesting because that's pretty much only in the cities, because the second we leave Riga and we're going to explore houses or anything, going to countryside, the roads are quite good. They're really nice, well maintained. You can drive fast and safely, and there's no potholes. But the second you enter a city, you're like, yep, the city is near, because the roads are getting really bad.
So the second thing on our list is pretty significant, I would say, and that's what makes Latvia not as great a place to live in, and that is one of the lowest wages in Europe. No wonder people are always looking for better countries to move, or at least to start their lives.
I mean, that's also a reason why we left in the first place when we moved to Scotland, because for doing exactly the same job that we did in Latvia, we got paid, I think, 3 or 4 times more. The same position, the same job, the same requirements, but yeah, you just get paid more in different countries. A lot of Latvians, especially younger generations, choose to leave at least for some time, because yeah, you get paid better in different other countries, and sometimes you just don't feel like it's worth coming back.
As of this year, our minimum wage is 500 euros, which is pretty low if you compare to any other country. And also, if you think about the expense of living, it does not always add up. It's kind of hard, especially for younger people. We don't have that much support from anywhere else, from government, from entering the workforce, to just save up and start living here, especially if you have a student debt, or if you want to buy a house, or if you want to buy a car. Even if you think about it, it might not be that possible and realistic. And so for us as well, like you say, we moved to another country just so we can get a head of start for actually living here and being like part of the society, because we didn't have much money to begin with. In fact, we didn't have any. So that's something to think about. Maybe it's a better option to make your start somewhere else and then move back, as we did.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that, and as you said, when people start getting into workforce, they get out of schools, and if you actually want to pursue the job that you actually really want to do in your life, you might want to choose to do internships just to get in those jobs. But I would say pretty much almost all internships here in Latvia will be unpaid, which is like, you're still doing the job, you're just not that well, you don't have that much experience, but your internships will be unpaid. So you have to go to work, you have to pay for the public transport or car to go to your internship, but no one will pay you, and you're doing your 40-hour shifts, which is quite insane.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Even if you think about how school systems are here, a lot of schools will require you to finish a course just to go for an internship, otherwise you wouldn't be able to finish a school, and on top of that you would have to pay for the school too. So in our opinion, I guess we would just much rather go take up our job and our paycheck. Obviously, this is a whole another thing about the education, but we will get to that in the later points, right?
Yeah. So in the previous video about the pros of living in Latvia, we mentioned the weather as the pros here because we experience great summers, we experience great winters, fall, spring, all of that. But in the cons section, we also want to mention the fact that the winter time or the colder time is quite long here.
Actually, the con really is that the summers are way too short. Sometimes you only get like 2 or 3 months of a summer because then the autumn starts. Sometimes even in August you feel chilly and you try to pull out your winter jumpers so that you can get cozy. So Latvia is not the perfect summer destination if you're wanting to enjoy the sun and the sea. The Latvia will probably just gonna not be the place. The spring also starts quite late. It's obviously depending on the year, but it only really warms up to like 20-24 degrees maybe at the end of the May, because I remember when we were in school, our schools end in end of May, so starting from June everyone is on the summer break. And I remember that sometimes when it was the last weeks of the school and everyone could go outside, it was like a little bit of a hope coming back that the sun was out and you could just like warm up a little bit. But that's only literally right before the June, and so in June it's all nice, but still you have to wait for the water to warm up in case you want to go swimming. And obviously the smaller spaces, lakes, would warm up a little bit faster, but then the sea that we have doesn't really warm up that much. And so if there's only 2.5 months probably for the summer, it would still be pretty cold because all June would go just to warm up a little bit, and then July you would kind of enjoy it, but the temperatures would still not be that high. And then in August it starts to decline for the autumn again.
So lately, just like the rest of the world, Latvia has been experiencing more heat waves because of global warming. So we're kind of interested to see how this summer will be, because we haven't been here for quite a few summers. So maybe it warmed up and maybe this con will turn into a pro and it will be a better summer.
Maybe we'll have longer summers now since the global warming.
Yeah, at least some pros out of that.
And now we wanted to come back to that education topic that we kind of touched on about the salaries and living standards. Higher education here in Latvia is a paid thing for most part, unless you have a scholarship, but that's like few people would have. Majority, if you want a higher education, you would need to pay for it. Luckily for us, the prices are not as high as USA or any other country. Our tuition costs would be about, I don't think it goes much over than 1,000 a semester, so everything would be in that kind of price range from 500 to 1,000 a semester depending on what you're studying. And obviously the higher education would also depend on what kind of programs you're taking, but usually it would be 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think it goes over 10,000. Probably it's like 5 to 10,000 for your degree. And yeah, I chose to study in Estonia, which has exactly the same thing. You have to pay for higher education, and they had the same thing in my course. From, I don't remember, 30, 40 people, only 2 were allowed to get the scholarship, and you had to be Estonian, so any international student couldn't even apply, which was great. But yeah, and then when we traveled to Scotland and Malta, people were shocked that I would say that I have the student loan, and they're like, yeah, I've heard about the loans when you take when you're a student, just to, go to parties and rent flats and everything. And I was like, no, that's just to go into the school. You have to get another loan just to survive there, or you have to start working, which doesn't really help for you to study. If you want to pay for your own studies, you have to start to go to work, and then you're mostly at work because you're not going to get paid a lot if you just do a couple hours at work, and then you don't really concentrate on studies, and yeah, it just falls apart. So that's not great.
It can be a really big mess if you start going into work and your school, because if you work and learn full-time, it's quite impossible, like you say. Probably the best is like a weekend education, but then your education will be even longer and will take even more years and to finish. And it's just the whole thing, because we do have the benefit of that we don't have to pay that much about the school, but comparing to our salaries and life kind of quality of life, we don't have still that spare money, like even those couple €100 to pay each month on the education, and don't feel as that's a burden on you.
Yeah, one thing that I'm thinking right now is that like our schools are not that expensive in comparison to other schools, but they're not actually that well acknowledged in the world either. You know, there may be some schools in Latvia you'll be like, oh yeah, you went to that good school, but anywhere outside Latvia, no one will ever heard of any of our schools, which isn't great. All right, so now we will move on to our next one, and that is that Latvia is just kind of boring.
There's not much to it. We don't have these big monuments that other countries might have. Like when you visit France, you're going to Paris and you will see the Eiffel Tower. Or if you're going to Rome, you will see Colosseum. And in Latvia, you don't really see that much.
Yeah, like we have those little things in Latvia. You have this wide waterfall that we mentioned, which isn't like actually that wide if you compare it to
or that impressive.
Yeah, we like to say good things about our own country, like we have nice wide forests and everything. There's a lot of nature, but it's like for a tourist, it's not very significant. Like you're gonna go to old Riga and you're gonna be like, oh, the buildings are nice, yeah, some architecture. But then Estonia and Lithuania will look exactly the same. So.
And even Germany. There's like all of these older Western countries. They have similar cool buildings just like ours. And the cities are built similarly like ours. And yes, we have the nature and we have pretty clean country and it's beautiful, but it's just as beautiful as Norway or Sweden or any other country that would have a forest or a river. So we love our country, but let's just say there's not this one significant monument that everyone would necessarily need to see in their lifetime.
Yeah, it's not on everyone's bucket list, you know, go to, like we don't have any big hills or mountains to climb or I don't know anything. It's just like it's an alright country, but no one really wants to come here to see anything significant. We just have like kind of nice average things here.
Yeah.
And our next point actually ties in with our previous point, is that as most of the Eastern Europe, we have a lot of Soviet buildings. Obviously we were part of Soviet Union and they built all these some block houses pretty much everywhere where the Soviet Union existed. So that also kind of makes sense that it just looks quite similar to every other country. And yeah, it's just like, it doesn't really look beautiful or nice. It's quite depressive.
Yeah, those houses are really depressive. We're really lucky that we live here in the city part where there isn't these tall buildings that just like 9-story high with like the apartments that look really bad. You have to pay, and I think for me it would be the worst part, that you still have to pay for these apartments, these crazy prices. Like if you want to buy or rent, you would still have to pay equal amounts for an apartment in a different place. And you just have this horrible building and you have this backyard with not much into it, just concrete, and then just like car parking lots, and it's all gray. It blends in with sky very well in winter, and it's just really not that nice. And actually, since we have these houses, we also don't have that many new building developments, unfortunately. We don't see that much houses to be built here and other options where people would live like for as many apartments as we need to, because all of those apartments are still occupied. And I don't know what happened if, for example, everyone wanted to move out of them, or like if the houses would need to rebuild. We don't even have the place to put these people or house those people elsewhere.
Yeah, and as you said, these houses are old and they've been here from the Soviet times. I have my fair share. I spent about, I don't know, maybe a bit over 15 years of living in one of them. And they're not well built. They will fall apart at some point, but you're still paying that much money just to get an apartment there. And it's really, yeah, it's depressive because I could walk into my friend's apartment and their apartment layout is exactly the same as mine. I just know where the bathroom and the kitchen is, with eyes closed, because it looks exactly the same. Just a couple of furniture is just a little bit different, and yeah, and then you pay so much money, and everyone lives in the same block houses, and no new beautiful buildings need to be built. And then because all of these houses look exactly the same, there's nothing different about them. They're exactly the same. When you have a tourist friend coming over, or someone who just comes from a different city, they get lost so easily. Even us, like if I lived there for about 15, almost 18 years, like if I go out of my little neighborhood and I go to the next neighborhood, like all these houses look exactly the same as my neighborhood, so you can get lost so easily, and you just wander around these houses and you're like, I recognize this house, but you're actually like in somewhere else, and then you wander around your own city because everything, all the layout will look exactly the same.
Now, as the last one, we have the thing that we have noticed since we came back. I don't think it was that strong when we left, but I don't really remember either. So either way, the last thing on our list is the poor customer service that we have at the basic level of a service, and that would be the grocery shopping here in Riga particularly. People seem just like unhappy and unfriendly, and they don't want to help you at all, and it's visible in their faces, so you better not ask for anything. Now that we have the systems in place for protection and like face masks and everything, they don't really keep up on the standard. I just feel like when you're entering the shop, the attitude of those people working there are like, can you just leave?
Well, you're saying you don't really remember that as being in the past, but the thing is, we lived here and we thought this is normal. Like, this is how everyone's supposed to treat each other. If you're going to a grocery store, people will be quite rude. And then we left to Scotland, and for me, that was quite a shock because Scotland has like one of the nicest customer service, and even people are just so much nicer on the streets and everything. Like if you just look lost, like some people will come and help you, want to help you and everything. And then when we came back here for the first time in like, I don't know, a couple of years, when we came here to visit, I noticed it like that. I was like, yeah, this lady was so rude to me for no reason. I'm trying to be nice, like I'm not doing anything. We have our own experience and working in customer service, but we've never been rude. And then I noticed, I was like, why is she so rude to me? What is this? And then we went back to Scotland and realized that, yeah, people are just there so much more like pleasant and more nice to deal with. And then we went to Malta, and even some people were nice in customer service, so you wouldn't notice it that much. And right now, then we came back and we're like, oh yeah, that was that thing. I mean, there is a reason to it because like people especially in grocery shops and customer service, they don't get paid well and their job conditions suck, so they don't really have that attitude to be happy and smiley.
We definitely don't have this culture of customer service in that level. Even though I do get it, it's not like your best job ever or your dream job, but you still are doing it, and we are the customers and we're coming to support whatever the company you're working for. And it's just like, I have no excuse. Yes, your conditions suck and it's your job, but it's your own choice. You applied for that job. It's just the kind of thing that in Latvia we have, people are closed down, and obviously their lives are not the easiest. The pay is not the best. Maybe they don't see much hope in their life, but that's apart from the point, because yes, it all can be the factors, but it's just the end result what we get in the customer service in the grocery shop, it has no real excuse. You should not still be in that.
Yeah, because when we go to a store, we do have some empathy to those people that they work there, and we're trying to be nice and pleasant and say hi and thank you and be just like a pleasant customer to have a good experience. And yet still they will be like, just like, yeah,
Not interested in
Yeah.
you at all.
get out of my hair. I want you gone as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I guess it's the vibe that you have it in there, and you just like can't avoid it. That's something we've noticed.
Yeah. Well, I think these were our cons of living in Latvia, but as we said in the very beginning, we only could count 6 cons in comparison to 10 pros, and we could have made that list of pros even bigger because
It was easier to
Yeah.
add them up.
so I think it's a good sign that, like, yeah, there are bad things here and some things that are not as great, but there's a lot more great things here. And maybe this is us just coming back from another country and we don't feel that depressed yet. But
And we have different perspective because we've seen other things, and obviously it's us that make our opinion, but so has everyone else here in Latvia. So for if you noticed anything that we did not mention in this video, and if you have any experience with Latvian cons, you can let us know as well. It'd be interesting. Maybe we can relate to them as well.
so, should this be the end of our video?
I think this is the end of the video.
So, if you guys enjoyed this one, you could leave a like, maybe 2. And
Maybe leave 2 likes.
and if you want to follow our journey here in Latvia and watch more of our videos, you could subscribe. That would be great. And we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.
Bye.